We used to be a team. Now, we're just business partners. If you looked at our life from the outside, you'd see a successful American family. The house in the suburbs, 2 kids, 2 steady incomes. But inside these walls, the silence is deafening. We don't have a marriage anymore. We have a merger. We talk about the mortgage, the grocery list, and the kids' soccer schedules. But when the lights go out, we aren't husband and wife. We're just 2 people sharing a zip code and a set of bills. My name is David. I'm 44, and I've spent the last 15 years building a life with Elena. Somewhere along the way, the us got buried under the weight of the grind. The more we earned, the more we seemed to lose. We reached a point where our only communication was transactional. Did you pay the electric bill? Who's picking up the kids? The intimacy didn't just walk out the door. It evaporated. Elena told me what she needed. To be wooed again. She wanted the compliments, the flowers, the physical touch. She said she felt like a cog in a machine. I listened. I truly did. I wanted to fix the bridge between us before it collapsed entirely. I started putting in the work, but it felt like I was trying to invest in a bank account that had already been closed. I started making the grand gestures the experts talk about. I arranged for her parents to take the kids for a weekend, so I could surprise her with a high-end dinner, the kind of place where you don't look at the prices on the right side of the menu. I dressed up. I complimented her dress, and I tried to hold her hand across the table. But the energy was off. It felt like I was following a script, and she knew it. Every time I initiated closeness, the excuses started. I'm not feeling well. I have a headache. I'm just so exhausted from work. The irony is, my own drive has been at an all-time low lately. The doctor says it's burnout and stress, a classic side effect of the high-pressure career I've maintained to keep us in this neighborhood. I didn't even need the physical act. I just needed a connection. I needed her to sit next to me on the couch instead of choosing the chair on the other side of the room. I needed her to look at me, not her phone or her to-do list. She began creating these elaborate nighttime routines, creams, masks, serums, that felt less like self-care, more like a tactical defense system. It was a 45-minute ritual designed to ensure that by the time she hit the pillow, intimacy was officially off the table. She was choosing unnecessary tasks to isolate herself, staying busy just so she wouldn't have to be present with me. The breaking point came a few nights ago. I saw her looking at her side hustle spreadsheets. She's been obsessed with financial security lately. Even though we're doing fine, I walked up behind her and just put my hand on her shoulder. She stiffened. "I'm working, David," she said, her voice like ice. "Elena, the money can wait," I told her. "We haven't really spoken, in weeks. You said you wanted me to try. I'm trying. I'm doing everything you asked for." She turned around, and the look in her eyes wasn't love. It was resentment. "You're doing them because I told you to," she snapped. "It's just another chore for you. You're performing being a husband so you can check it off your list next to property taxes." I realized then that we were caught in a toxic loop. I was treating romance like a transaction. If I put in X amount of effort, I should receive Y amount of affection. And she was treating my effort like a demand she wasn't ready to pay. We had turned our love into a debt. With Valentine's Day approaching, the pressure is mounting. Part of me wants to make a massive, expensive gesture to prove I still care. The other part of me is ready to do absolutely nothing. I'm tired of being the only one holding the emotional mortgage. I realize that a marriage can't survive on one person's investment alone. Elena needs to decide if she wants to be a partner or a roommate. And I need to stop trying to buy her affection with gestures and start having the hard, uncomfortable conversations about why she's hiding behind her routines. We've set a boundary now. No phones, no work talk, and no tasks after 9 p.m. It's small and it's awkward. Sitting on that same couch together feels like sitting with a stranger. But we're learning that you can't fix a relationship with a credit card or a script. You fix it by showing up, even when you have nothing to offer but your presence. Marriage is the most expensive investment you'll ever make. Not in dollars, but in ego and time. If you're feeling like roommates, stop looking at what your partner isn't doing and start looking at the walls you both built to stay safe. Money can buy a house, but it can't buy the feeling of coming home. We're still working on it. One night, one honest conversation at a time. I'm 39, solo, and currently sleeping on a friend's pull-out couch. 2 months ago, I lived in a 3-bedroom house with a man I thought was my forever. Now, I have a check for $100,000 in my purse, my half of buyout, and no idea where I belong. In this economy, that money is either my ticket back into the property market or the fuel for a life I've never been brave enough to live. Do I buy back into the dream, or do I finally buy my freedom? Leaving a years-long relationship is like waking up from a long sleep only to realize the world has become impossibly expensive. I'm in a high-cost city where rent is, quite frankly, bananas. A monthly lease costs more than a mortgage, and the ladder I work so hard to climb feels like it's being pulled up just as I'm trying to grab the bottom rung. My ex-partner moved on quickly, comfortably staying in our old home while I navigated the emotional wreckage. My friends are amazing, but I can see the clock ticking on their hospitality. I have enough for a solid down payment on a 1-bedroom condo. On paper, the choice is simple. Buy immediately, secure my future as a child-free woman, and start building equity again. But my heart is whispering something very different. The pressure is immense. Every financial advisor on my feed says the same thing. Get back in now. You aren't getting any younger, and mortgage terms are getting shorter. The fear of being 65 and still paying rent is a shadow that follows me everywhere. But then there's the sabbatical idea. The madcap plan to take that lump sum, invest it in a diversified portfolio, and spend 6 months traveling or just breathing. I've spent my entire adult life working to pay for a house I eventually lost. I've lived by the rules of stability and shared goals. For the first time in my life, I don't have to check with anyone before I book a flight or change my career path. Living with friends has given me a strange perspective. I see their domestic struggles, their mortgage stress, and their lack of mobility. I start to wonder, is a 1-bedroom condo in a noisy city really the security I need, or is it just a smaller version of the cage I just escaped? The battle between being financially sensible and emotionally honest is tearing me apart. The breaking point came when I actually went to a viewing for a perfect 1-bedroom apartment. It was gray, sterile, and cost nearly every cent of my buyout. As the realtor droned on about resale value and low HOAs, I had a panic attack in the bathroom. I realized I wasn't scared of the market. I was scared of committing to a life I didn't want yet. I was trying to buy stability because I didn't trust myself to be stable without a deed in my hand. My ex-partner's buyout wasn't just money. It was the price of my silence for all those years I stayed in a relationship that didn't fit. If I poured it all back into bricks and mortar right now, I was just trading one set of walls for another. I decided to set a boundary, not with an ex, but with society. I decided that financial health isn't just about assets. It's about the ROI on your happiness. I'm not buying the condo. At least, not yet. I've moved into a modest rental that I can afford on my solo salary, keeping my buyout money in a high-yield investment account where it can grow while I figure out my next move. I'm planning that sabbatical for fall. Being a solo, child-free woman in her late 30s is a superpower, but only if you stop measuring your worth by the standard milestones. I've learned that a home isn't a place you own. It's the peace of mind you have when you close the door. My future is secure because I'm the one managing it, not because I'm tied to a 30-year debt in a city that makes me feel small. To anyone standing at the crossroads of major life change, don't let the fear of the market drive you into a decision you aren't ready for. Money is a tool, not a master. Sometimes the best investment you can make isn't in real estate. It's in the time it takes to find yourself again. The ladder will still be there when you're ready to climb. But for now, just enjoy the view from the ground. Imagine coming home to a house that is everything you ever wanted, 3 beautiful children, a comfortable suburban life, and a husband who finally tells you the truth about everything. On paper, we are the perfect success story of a couple who survive an affair. But as I stand in our kitchen tonight, looking at the man I've shared 6 years with, I realize the most painful truth of all. He has finally become the honest man I begged him to be. And that honest man just told me he feels absolutely nothing when he looks at me. My name is Sarah, and at 32, I thought I was living the second chapter of a hard-won victory. My husband, Mark, and I have been married for 6 years. We built a life in a quiet neighborhood, balanced our careers, and navigated the chaos of raising 3 kids. But our foundation didn't just crack. It shattered last Mother's Day. I didn't find out through a late-night text or a hidden receipt. I found out because Mark made a mistake that felt like a scripted cruelty. He mailed Mother's Day flowers to a co-worker instead of me. That one bouquet exposed a month-long betrayal. In an instant, I wasn't a wife or a mother in his eyes. I was the person he was looking past. The months that followed were a blur of tears, expensive marriage retreats, and weekly counseling sessions. To his credit, Mark stepped up. He cut ties with the other woman immediately. He leaned into the work. We talked about things we hadn't touched in years. We realized the affair started because he didn't know how to be vulnerable with me. He had sought emotional refuge elsewhere because he felt he couldn't open up at home. So we fixed it. Or so I thought. We practiced radical transparency. We had scheduled date nights. I stopped tracking his location. I stopped checking his phone. I gave him back his independence because I wanted a partner, not a prisoner. Through the therapy, my trust actually started to grow back. It was a miracle, right? But as the trust returned, I noticed something terrifying. While I was leaning back into him, Mark was drifting into a different kind of distance. It's a quiet, polite distance that is far harder to fight than anger. By the time autumn hit, the warmth in our house had changed. The air felt thinner. We were communicating better than ever, but it was a communication of 2 high-level business partners managing a very complicated household. We were succeeding at the logistics of marriage while the soul of it was being quietly evicted. The breaking point came in October. No fight, no drama, just a conversation on the edge of the bed that felt like a death sentence. I reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away, but he didn't hold it back either. I asked him why he hadn't kissed me in weeks, why the romance seemed to have evaporated just as the honesty arrived. He looked at me with a kindness that hurt worse than a slap and said, "Sarah, I see you as my best friend. I see you as an incredible mother and the best co-parent I could ask for. But I don't have romantic feelings for you anymore. They're just gone." Since that day, I've been living in a psychological purgatory. I am friend-zoned by my own husband in the house we pay for together. We share a mortgage, we share a bed, we share the responsibility of 3 small lives, but we don't share a spark. I tell him I love him, and he says he cares about me. The most twisted part? He gets upset when I'm sad about it. If I show the heartbreak I'm feeling, he says it makes him feel like a failure, which only pushes him further away. I'm expected to be grateful for his honesty and his presence, while starving for his affection. He mentions divorce casually, like he's considering changing a car insurance policy, but then he stays. We are playing a high-stakes game of chicken, waiting to see who will be the one to finally shatter the perfect co-parenting routine we built. My therapist asked me a question last week that I couldn't answer. Why are you still standing in a room where the door is wide open and the heater is turned off? I'm still here because you can't switch off love like a lamp. I'm still here because I'm terrified that if I leave, I'm the one breaking the family, even though he's the one who checked out. But I'm starting to realize that staying for the kids is teaching them that marriage is a cold, silent arrangement based on endurance rather than joy. Is it possible for a spark to return after a year of coldness? Maybe, but at what cost to my soul? I'm learning that there's a massive difference between a stable household and a loving marriage. Rebuilding trust is only half the battle. You can't negotiate desire. I'm standing at the edge of a choice. I can keep living as the best friend to a man who broke my heart twice, or I can find the strength to demand a life where I'm not just a co-parent, but a woman who is actually wanted. If you've ever felt like a ghost in your own home, you know that the silence is louder than any argument. We stay because we hope, but sometimes hope is just a way of prolonging the pain. If you were in my shoes, would you keep waiting for the spark to come back? Or is it time to stop being a great co-parent and start being a whole person again? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading them all tonight.